Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Crypto Hipsters podcast, where I interview founders and co founders, entrepreneurs and artists, executives and stay at home hipsters in crypto and blockchain around the world. And I have an amazing podcast for you today. Let's get to it. And today, I have an amazing guest. His name is Ryan Williams. He is the executive director at the Blockchain Academy. Ryan, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here, and I appreciate the work you're doing. We all need it. We need a lot more information to reach the masses.
Awesome. Thank you. And there is a lot of information. So
too much in every direction, it seems.
So speaking of information, to gather a little bit from you, what is your background, and is it a logical background for what you're doing now?
No. As many there's some that the progression from computer science leads you to where you're at. My background, it's funny enough, a lot of life is about timing. And I wanted to be a real estate developer, graduated in 2008. Not the best time to graduate for real estate development, if you recall. And I went into solar and a bunch of other things. However, the education was always so fascinating to me on, skills, right? I felt like there was always going to be a need for skills. But I also, my background is partnering with colleges and universities. So a lot of these schools, even well-to-do institutions are just not fast enough to fill in the program gaps. Take even coding, for example. These schools, there was 200 coding boot camps out there, and then eventually the schools started to figure out a decade later. So our function is or my background is to partner with schools to fill in program gaps. And essentially, that's what I've been doing for the last decade.
Awesome. So let's talk about that a little bit. The first thing I want to find out, though, is how do you build and scale the talent pipeline with the blockchain technology field?
Yeah, so it's funny, what talent specifically, because it's not, you can have the general baseline, what is blockchain? And everybody really should understand that. It's kind of like if the internet come along and there was enough programming and information out there to help educate folks in a meaningful way, not just drooling through a YouTube video. But when the internet came out and everybody could figure it out sooner and faster, now everybody's kind of caught up. Things are happening quickly. People are realizing maybe this is the next wave. And so, scaling talent is not just educating people at the basic level. You have to get them there, which right now is actually a really hard thing to do because everybody's hearing it, but grasping it and crossing that chasm, just like the internet was a major chasm, like email. You didn't understand how that worked. You don't understand how algorithms work or how algorithms necessarily work, but they get you from point A to point B. The same with blockchain. We have to get comfortable with what it is doing, and that's the baseline. And then there's all these different, in terms of talent, there's all these different blockchains trying to accomplish different things to some degree or another. Many are competing head on. So how are they onboarding talent? And so we're working with them really to create curriculum, to streamline their documentation. A lot of times, a hacker developer, really savvy guys and girls can get into the space, figure it out, chew up the documentation, test it, run through walls to get it done. But that's not everybody. If you want mass adoption, if you want talent scaling, you need to go up the learning curve as quickly as possible without a lot of frustration. So that's what we do is we partner with blockchains out there that I'm not allowed to say just yet who they are all publicly, but we're launching curriculums and assessments towards certifications similar to like AWS Cloud Practitioner cert, or IBM has some certifications out there. Linux Hyperledger Fabric and R3 Corridor, they have certifications. So it's creating more of those on-ramps and benchmarks, skill benchmarks, to help the industry grow in a meaningful way and not, just the Wild West. And nobody knows who's what. An 8-hour blockchain program from India and you're an expert versus, an 80 or 100-hour program that really takes you, to a point where you can actually launch a project.
So let's talk about that quickly. Follow up on that. 100-hour program takes substantial time to build. And what we have in this industry is tremendous velocity where things change
Mhm.
rapidly. So how do you,
Oh,
balance that need to build a program with the velocity that's occurring rapidly?
that's a great question, and we had to kind of go into it this way from the start. So building things in a very modular basis, because some information will stay static, right? It won't need to be updated all the time. It's kind of, how do you set up an environment? Maybe that doesn't change all that often. Or, what is the general protocol? That might not change that often. But the little things that are happening in the space, we have to make those modulars as a component of this learning very bite size, and can fill in and update older content, or you kind of you remove old content that has. It's funny, even after 2 weeks we did a recording to update blockchain foundations, and it was $64,000 Bitcoin price. It's already dated, right? It's already massively looks like it was done, could be 3 months ago when you're eventually looking at the course. So we just have to might be mindful to have these newer little bite-sized components there just to make sure that the content is up to speed. And then every now and again, you do have to do an overhaul, like 85%, and rebuild the entire course probably every 18 months to 2 years.
So it's kind of like building technology in a company where you do everything agile.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. In fact, fortunately, we're building the curriculum with agile, program developers. So they're taking that same sort of approach you do to just programming development, and bring it to the curriculum size as well.
Awesome.
I mean, it's the only way to go now. I feel like if you build too much, and you might have missed the market unless you hit it right on the head in terms of the perfect product at the perfect time. Iteration and agile is the only way to build a business now.
Awesome. I was wondering the how, and you did, and that explains. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
So let's look at the current state of the blockchain workforce, from both
Mm.
an institutional perspective and from the entrepreneurial perspective. What's the same? What's different?
Institutionally, I feel like they are all in that same boat as, like, hey, do we launch a program that might be dated in 2 3, and they're all launching this new, a new protocol, a new mainnet, a new application on top of it, and they're determining whether or not, from an institutional side, whether or not it's worth it to do it now, or in 6 months from now, or 3 months from now, right? And then on the entrepreneurial side, there's a bunch of people kind of flooding into the space, making a lot of PR noise and things like that, but who's actually putting shots on goal in terms of products out in the marketplace that are actually helping these ecosystems grow? And I feel like we need to provide as many means for those ideas to come forth, right? Because there's just um, you need the entrepreneurial mindset right now, because it is so new and scary and exciting. And there's a lot of wealth being created at the same time, that can crater anytime. So you have to make sure that when you do get something of value and people see as value, the entrepreneurs out there, can they get enough actual product traction and talent traction behind their ideas? And I think that's the big challenge over the next 6 months to 18 months is those people kind of forming teams to actually build out products on top of these blockchains. And it's happening, but it's just it's been a little hackneyed right now, right? And there has been a lot of help or assistant, and everybody's figuring out on their own, which is what entrepreneurs do. But we want to make it a little easier on the education front, so they can focus on the business idea and building the team around that idea to grow it. They shouldn't have to worry about piecing together an entire curriculum in order to kind of get up the learning curve to launch something. And so we hope what we're putting out in the marketplace, and again, that iteration, that feedback, helps improve those products to help further bring people up the learning curve quicker. So
Great.
yeah, on the
So
institutional side, real quick, back to that, I feel like just over the last quarter, companies are coming in and saying, all right, we've got the tech now. The war for talent is really becoming more mainstream. People I've been reaching out to for 6, 12 months. Now they're all hitting me up saying, all right, 2022 is coming. We need to get education out there, and onboard as many people as possible.
awesome. So back in 2017, it was a crazy bull market environment. We've had more of a crab environment recently. In 2018, it was a crypto winter.
Mhm.
When do you find is a better time for this talent pipeline to be develop during a crazy bull market or when things have settled down a bit in a bear market? Have you seen it? Have you seen a difference in the two environments?
Oh, I would say as it relates to specifically crypto in the crypto bubble, I would say it's based on the value of these cryptos. Right. But outside of that, um, the value is really where the market is. So it's funny, all blockchain would be potential blockchain developers, full stack developers, they're fully employed. You know, if you're a full stack developer, you can get a great paying job right now, right? As long as you have some experience. So to convince those people to take time away from what they're doing to upskill, even if you're saying, hey, we can get you a 30% pay bump. If you just take this, even sometimes if you've got the chops, just a 24-hour course will get you a considerable skill set and pay bump as a result. But they're fully employed. If I hope it doesn't happen, but if we have another situation like we did in '08, where there's a lot of people out of work just as a result of a real significant economic crash, not just crypto, that's when people go back to school, right? Education is a counter-cyclical business. So most people aren't thinking about education when they're fully employed. But if you recall how many MBAs programs and students launched in 2010, 11, 12. Everybody went back to school, right? So that's when I think the masses will come in. Unfortunately, I don't want to crash. I think the time is now. But when it comes to crypto and the exchanges and all that stuff and the jobs in that space, it is largely based on the share price. That's why you're seeing, or the crypto price, you should say. That's why you're seeing these massive, 620% increase in job postings on LinkedIn since August of last year. So, and I think that trend will continue as the prices continue or stay where they're at. And then again, if a major beyond crypto market crash happens, you'll see a lot of people kind of saying, all right, what's next? And what skill set do I need in order to maintain my standard of living? Which, as everybody gets squeezed, we all need skills in order to rise above the tide.
Got it. Thank you. So back in December 2017, I had a conversation with IBM company, and I thought they were interested in my background. It turns out they wanted to know how they could retain all their open source developers because they were all leaving to work on Ethereum and other open source platforms. So, what have you seen as far as the interest in open source versus corporate?
I think open source is the way to go, just because one, they tend to not charge, right? IBM might charge you a little bit something in order to get in their ecosystem. I think that's about to change, considering all the big players out there are starting to pay developers to take their open source class and complete it. They're literally like, just like Coinbase for individuals, retail. You're going to start to see, hey, if you become a certified developer in X, we'll give you, 500 of our crypto, whatever that might be worth, 2,000 USD, right? So the point is, the kind of, I've seen it switch, right? It's kind of more that European model where the employers have the on ramps and develop the talent. And now that we've moved to open source, and that's more of a common thing now. It's whoever has the easiest, best program to get you up and running, I think, is what will make people come into your open source course. And then I think the IBMs of the world, even if they might have great curriculum, they're going to have to use existing partners to kind of push that content. You're starting to see them partner with colleges and universities, and they always have been. But I don't think IBM's going anywhere. I think they've positioned themselves really nice in this field. But open source is going to change how they acquire and maintain talent, and they might have to compensate people that have been in their ecosystem forever that they don't want to lose. Hey, get certified. Not only get certified, we'll pay you, and you can probably get a pay bump. It's going to be that, and whoever makes it the easiest for those folks is going to win, I think.
Great, thank you. So you said at the very, very beginning, you said skills, right? So what are the key skills that are needed from both a technical and a non-technical viewpoint? And what offerings does your organization provide in each area?
So thank you for the question. So we do both technical, very technical training. Like we're developing the curriculum and certification exams for these new platforms that are launching. The Ethereum killers, even Ethereum Foundation themselves, we've been trying to help them create a certification that remains to be seen. But the let me think here for 1 second. So what are the viewpoints, non-technical versus technical? So they all need they need those people that are technical to level up and come into their field. On the non-technical front, we've kind of taken the approach of what industries are going to be most impacted. And so we created curriculum specifically for those industries, like finance is the most obvious one that's going to be impacted. And that was the first course that was created, but we created blockchain for the supply chain, blockchain for accounting, which is going to be massively impacted, blockchain for insurance. Insurance, it's just data and information and storing. There's a lot of middlemen in that space. There's a lot of efficiencies to be gained there. Supply chain, massive supply chain issues. Blockchain is a major solution in that going forward. So we've tried to, on the non-technical front, focus on industries we felt were most impacted. Hell, real estate's even seeing blockchain as a liquefying real estate. You're starting to hear this token economics on that front. So that's another course we'll be creating on the non-technical. So on the non-technical, industry-specific or general blockchain education, of which we have 14 self-paced titles with assessment towards certification. And on the more technical, and not just self-paced stuff, we're talking workshops, strategy workshops, things like that for business-minded folks. We even use no-code solutions. There's a great product out there called Simba Chain that allows non-technical folks, I include myself in that bunch, to be able to even launch a smart contract on a number of blockchains without any code. So it's like Wix websites for blockchain. So you're starting to see that. And we take those as labs into our environment for the non-technical to help them actually kind of get a feel for how it's all working and actually see a contract deployed, smart contract or an NFT or whatever, on the blockchain. And they can actually do it themselves. So it kind of makes it more palatable from a non-technical standpoint. On the technical front, you've had Linux Foundation, the Hyperledger Fabric exam. I was actually involved in creating that. R3 Corda is going through version 5 of their curriculum and their update of their certification. And then there's all these other ones coming out. And so whoever has the best traction method, it's not just the best course. And unfortunately, you can't, given the open source competition out there, you can't necessarily charge for it. So it's more about promotion and getting it out there and acquiring those that are most likely to take it. And how do you get them into your field? And I think the competition is so fierce and there's so much money floating around. I anticipate next year to see people getting paid to get certified, which is bonkers. You couldn't fathom that 10 years ago in other fields, right? So, and that might cease to happen if there's a crypto crash or things like that. So regardless of where it's going, we have to just keep a long-term focus on the skills and certifications in this space. And regardless of the stock price or the fluctuation of cryptocurrency prices, we must maintain standards. Otherwise, it's just a race to the bottom.
Got it. And I wasn't going to ask the next question, but being that you brought it up and you created content in this area, everywhere I go, recently, like say Shop and Shop, I walk into there and the shelves are half bare, more than half bare, right?
Yeah.
And I listen to the news, says we have a supply chain issue. What do people know and need to know about what the current supply chain issue is actually, and how blockchain could help alleviate that issue?
Yeah, well, the macroeconomic view is it's really both a it's more of a demand problem than it is a supply problem. I think the supply was constrained largely by the shutdowns and things like that of people actually getting materials, which can hamper everything. But it's more so a demand issue. There's so much money, particularly in the U.S., of people with too much cash, and they want to buy things that they maybe haven't ever purchased before, and they can't. So that is what's creating just too much glut of demand, which is putting a major constraint on the supply chain, which had its issues because of the COVID shutdown. So as we come out of this, if we come out of this, we might not, right? This endemic, not a pandemic, with these new variants, is people need to understand that once you get information on a supply chain, nobody knows where anything is now. It's like it's on the 30th ship out there at sea. You can see it on the horizon. We don't know exactly which one, but once you get things on a blockchain, whoever's kind of bringing the parts together to make something, right, or package something, If you know where everything is, you can get a more accurate time on when it's getting out and what are the issues coming in. So right now it's disjointed. Everybody, the supply chain, think about all these businesses that created it together. Once you get companies working on one platform or multiple platforms that are interoperable, that just streamlines everything. But this is not easy stuff. Like, I don't anticipate the supply chain, as we know it today, to be on the blockchain within the next like few years. We're talking, in 7 years, which, a lot can happen in 7 years. The iPhone's only 13 years old. I always think about how much can happen over a decade. But in the near term, there's a lot of work to be done. And there's a lot of education, of the supply chain folks, working with the Association for Supply Chain Management and others. They are, they're old school folks. They've been in supply chain. It's not something that's had a degree for a long time. Degrees in supply chain just came out. So it's upskilling those individuals that have made the industry what it is, and not only just upskilling them, but they have to overhaul the entire thing right now. So a ton of education is needed, and people need to understand that this is more of a demand issue, I think, than anything else, which I hope demand stays where it's at, right? It's good for everybody. But that stokes inflation and all these other things that are not necessarily in our control. So we have to do our best to control what we can. And I think the blockchain really does help bring a lot of those things into focus.
Awesome. Yeah, I needed a new control panel on my oven for the past month, and it's on some ship out there. In the meantime,
Right.
I've become a saute expert.
I bet.
So,
That's funny.
yeah, so
Yeah, I remember when the pandemic first started, we couldn't get parts for our dishwasher. I found it methodical, or sorry, a bit of a therapy, but I washed dishes for 4 months. I hadn't done that since college, right? Not having a dishwasher through the pandemic, that was not fun. And it seems those problems persist. And so I really do hope they figure it out. I will continue to do my part or our part on the education front to hopefully bring those professionals up to speed, and then within years they can get those applications into the supply chain.
an additional thing to be brought up to speed, is you focus on is creating industry credibility, which is very important, right? I don't feel that we're there yet, so I wanted to ask why not and what needs to happen for us to get there.
Yeah. This is, it's not just our industry, it's newer, and we're hopefully with our leadership and those in the space are seeing these certifications, micro credentials, stackable programs, which is where skills are developed. Um, the credentials and actually verifying an actual skill, as opposed to I took a YouTube video. Somebody could see that you watched a YouTube video. Does that mean you retained the information? You understood it? Did you take any little knowledge check or assessment? And no, you didn't. So I think people need to start labeling themselves based on what they've either accomplished, maybe in an official project. So we're talking to some people about actually verifying projects, because that's a major indication of whether or not you're able to do something, right? Is it out in the marketplace? Can it work? Is there an minimal viable product out there even that you can get verified and say, yes, this individual built this, and they can build something else for you, right? So, but as the individuals go, again, we'll take Linux Foundation or R3 Corda. They already have certifications out there. I can tell you on the language front, the languages that are needed, like Rust or C++ or you name it, as on-ramps to specific blockchains, there isn't a C++ certification that I'm aware of for that language. And I think you're going to start to see a lot more of these, hey, I can pass a language test on the technical front, which is a precursor for maybe developing on Near protocol or whatever. So the more we can get these verified skills, that kind of gives a decision tree to those that acquire them. Hey, with this skill, I can then acquire this skill and go on this route towards that objective or that career objective. And so it also helps on the employer side. Right now, nobody knows who the hell can develop in Solidity, but they're willing to pay out the nose for somebody to do it. Now, if there was an official Solidity developer certification, which we actually helped create, we haven't launched it yet because we wanted to do it with with Ethereum Foundation. They won't pick winners, so we need to get consensus. But at the same time, these assessments can be out there, but it's getting enough people to point at it and say, this is a legit assessment, and we all rally around this. What we're doing to help in that space is, because we hadn't seen a certification, and I really need certifications through my college and university partnerships, because I can't necessarily launch programs that will be funded by the Department of Labor or Department of Defense unless there's a verified skill. And so I needed to help launch these certifications. So with the Government Blockchain Association and all of our test banks, we're starting to create a certification body. Government Blockchain Association wants to establish their own certification, which they have. They're going to get it on a blockchain and have it more of a digital badge format. But outside of that, for more technical certifications, say for, I can't again mention who, but a major block, just call it Ethereum, even though it's not. Let's say Ethereum wants to launch a certification. Where is that launch? So we help form the Blockchain Certification Association, or BCA. And so that's kind of a group of people forming this certification body. We've donated a bunch of our test banks for a ton of courses, foundational content, architecture, security, but then it's on different working groups to oversee those certifications and those test banks to say, is this really what we need to assess in order to say this person is qualified for this skill? And if they have to update the test bank and update the benchmark, then it's on the curriculum providers, whether it's me or a college or university that wants to point to that cert, to update their curriculum to align with the certification. The more we can get this down and get the badges on a platform that employers can say, all right, in this radius or this country or this time zone, I want people with these certifications. And then instead of putting a job on Monster or whatever and getting a million junk resumes and maybe one unicorn out of the bunch, now you could say, all right, here's all my unicorns in a stable. I want that one. Because you can see that not only they have this cert, they have 5 other certs that completely are like a warm blanket in terms of your, seeing them as a good fit for your company. So I think more digital we get about these badges, and the more we get them out there and industry recognizes them, the more the workforce kind of streamlining the onboarding process will ease and get better.
We have a lot of YouTubers out there who say that a certification isn't necessary. And when I look at their backgrounds, they don't have any backgrounds prior. So how would you dispute their claim? I could look at it, looking at their backgrounds, but how would you dispute that certifications aren't needed? It sounds like they are.
It's funny. I very much believe they are. However, even those that are high up in the blockchain space that are creating the curriculum for these, it's an argument with me and them that I think there should really be a cert. Some are dead set against it because they have that hacker mindset. Hey, I've been able to do it through YouTube, and they're taking the approach more from, somebody that did it themselves. But the problem is, that's like 5% of people out there, and most people need to be taken up the learning curve in a very methodical format that helps them. Because again, blockchain is not easy. 1, 2, the documentation out there is changing every minute, so you need a course that's aligned with these things to constantly make it easy for people, and not just those that don't feel a certification is needed. So I think they're needed. Some don't. The YouTubers out there, to answer your question, I think, like you said, a lot of them are full of malarkey, and so they just say it's not needed because they don't got it. They don't have the chops. So I encourage you to distance yourself by getting some credentials under your belt, and there'll be a lot of emerging or competing credentials out there. I think you try to look for the ones that have the most other brands pointing at them, because that's consensus. The nice thing is, when we launch the certification, we're launching it, with 30 universities and 15 associations, and we work with a bunch of student groups. So the nice thing is, we already have a network of folks looking at these certs, kind of feeling that they're valid, and then employers that do the same will do the same. So it is a credibility thing. It does take time, but we need to get on page as to what these credentials are. And I don't think they should be expensive. I think it should just be an assessment leading towards a digital badge that you can put on your website. So maybe open source curriculum, and then a paid examination, should you feel you have it. And that leads to a digital badge that you can then market it, and it has metadata saying, yes, this individual passed this exam on this date and is good for 2 years or whatever it is. And so I think that brings a lot of credibility to the market space.
I think so too. And I've seen badge programs by AWS and IBM lead people who I used to work with to great jobs. So I've seen that.
Yeah, yeah. Row in the same direction where these big companies are going, because you fight it, you might make your own way, but at the same time, it can't hurt to get certified and educated in a in a formal way, right?
Thank you. So I have one last question. I want to thank you very much for your time today. It's been a great conversation. My last question is this: how can people find out more information about you, about the Blockchain Academy, about what you do? How can they get involved?
Absolutely. And thanks for asking. So I would say our website is theblockchainacademy.com. However, you'll notice many of those listening to this might not necessarily see the need for their own personal education or training, but they want to bring it into their organization or, you know, so we do a lot of white label partnerships. That's our main business. You have to kind of think of our organization as a mini Pearson or McGraw-Hill. So we have content, but then we're sort of on service steroids in the sense that we provide instructor should you not have somebody knowledgeable enough. You know, so the point is a lot of services around the curriculum, and we white label it for organizations. Now, if you're an individual and just want to get trained, you can come to me, or you can come to any of our college or university partners. We got great partners like University of Cincinnati, University of California, Santa Barbara, Clemson, Texas A&M. You know, just great schools, and that's just on the state side. We have University of Alberta in Canada, Leicester University in UK, and University of College of Dublin. So we're all over the place. Australia is picking up, Singapore. So you'll start to see a lot of programs, and I hope you'll find out that they are ours under the hood, right, to some extent. It's supposed to be white label, so we're there to fill in program gaps. You can come to us directly, but I just assume and would like to see you get certified by, you know, University of Singapore or whatever that's offering a program. Should we have the curriculum under it? Even if we aren't the curriculum provider, I want to see individuals get trained and educated. There's just too big of a world out there, and you know the the amount of change that's coming. I feel like anybody that educates themselves right now, just as you could have when e-commerce came out, you're going to be better off had you done it sooner than later. So don't wait. Get educated. You can take a small program. Maybe you say, hey, this is not for me. I learned something. I can talk at a cocktail party about blockchain and not sound or feel like an idiot. But we find a lot of people that scratch below the surface. Again, it's crossing that chasm and really seeing the light of what this new technology can bring to every business, organization, citizenry, everything. And it gets people excited. So I encourage you, just scratch below the surface, get that first micro credential, say blockchain foundations, and then you can go on to be a project manager or a developer or a business strategist. Those are the three main tracks, I would say. And so get started, log in, learn, get credentialed, and go from there.
Let me ask a little last, just to reiterate, because you are the Irish Tech News, and you mentioned that you are in Dublin. So I wanted to just hear you say where
Yeah.
you're at again one more time.
Yep, University of College Dublin. So we work with some students there on the degree side, kind of as a capstone project, but we'll be doing a lot more with them and others in Ireland and other countries in the UK or in Europe.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your
Yeah,
time today.
absolutely. All right, thank you. Appreciate your time.